One, something that we are looking forward to happening as we take a look right now at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Of course, that is the home of the Atlanta Falcons. So today, Falcons owner Arthur Blank is expected to speak publicly for the very first time since there's been all of the news that happened this week. Massive team shakeups, the firing, of course, of head coach Raheem Morris and general manager Terry Fontenot as well. So this press conference with Arthur Blank is expected to happen in the minutes ahead, I think around 11:15, 11:20. So we're keeping an eye on this, and we'll be sure to bring you this live as soon as that comes. So again, looking to this press conference with Arthur Blank here in the minutes ahead. But first, I want to get to this one. Of course, a big national story. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz is preparing the National Guard for deployment. That's after an ICE officer shot and killed a woman in South Minneapolis yesterday. So we have identified that woman. City officials have said that is 37-year-old Renee Nicole Good. The governor there has not deployed the guard just yet. He says this is just a precaution in case those anti-ICE protests turn violent. So Fox's Asher Red is live for us in Minneapolis right now. So Asher, good morning to you. I know there's a lot of debate over whether or not the shooting was justified.
Well, at least just in the last few hours, we've seen some active protests pop up here in Minneapolis. One of them is going on at the federal building just a few blocks away from where I'm standing. It appears that federal agents have already had to use pepper balls, pepper spray on a few agitators, and of course make a few arrests. Now, the Department of Homeland Security says the ICE agent in this case was right to shoot in this case. Now, the governor and the city's mayor aren't buying that. Immigration agents are conducting targeted operations in South Minneapolis yesterday afternoon. That's when 37-year-old Renee Nicole Good appeared to block agents in with her car. When agents told Good to get out of the car, that's when DHS Secretary Kristi Noem says she tried to run them over. And then an ICE agent shot and killed Good through the windshield. Secretary Noem is calling Good a domestic terrorist and accusing her of using a car as a weapon.
You know, people need to stop using their vehicles as weapons. This domestic act of terrorism to use your vehicle to try to kill law enforcement officers is going to stop. And I'm asking the Department of Justice to prosecute it as domestic terrorism.
But some city officials are calling this murder, saying the ICE agent should be arrested and charged. Within hours of the shooting, hundreds of anti-ICE protesters showed up at the scene, many of them throwing snow and chunks of ice at law enforcement. Mayor Jacob Fry is calling the Trump administration's narrative BS, and he didn't use the acronym.
Having seen the video of myself, I want to tell everybody directly, that is bull***. To ICE, get the out of Minneapolis. We do not want you here.
This is just devastating for the community. We can't have people getting murdered in our streets. It's just not right.
And this shooting happened just days after DHS deployed about 2,000 additional officers to the Minneapolis area. Both state and local officials are telling people who want to protest to do so peacefully. The National Guard is on standby as a precaution in case things turn violent. Elise?
It seems DHS is saying these vehicle ramming attacks on ICE agents are becoming more and more common.
Well, Secretary Noem says that just in recent weeks, there have been about 100 vehicle ramming attacks on ICE agents across the country. She also says that yesterday alone, the nation saw 4 vehicle ramming attacks on ICE agents, 3 of them happening right here in Minneapolis.
Fox's Asher Red joining us live in Minneapolis with the very latest on what's happening there. Looks like things are picking up there in the streets today. So, Asher, thank you so much for the very latest on that. So no big surprise here. We're hearing from Democrats in the nation's capital. Democratic lawmakers are responding to questions about the shooting death of the woman that we mentioned and just their take on the situation and what happened. So let's listen in together to some of what they're saying in the nation's capital.
To shut down the government right now. Some of your colleagues are threatening to shut down the government right now over the fatal shooting in Minneapolis. Given the fact that we saw the government shut down over these subsidies, I mean, is this a road that Democrats now want to walk down again?
The Appropriations Committee, and particularly the committees on Homeland Security, are taking up this issue, and they will have a very important and serious discussion about it. You're next. You're next.
So, given that you said that they're going to be taking up the appropriations process, if Democrats take back the House or Senate, will they do anything to slash funding for ICE or hold ICE accountable for these fatal shootings? There are multiple shootings, not just what happened to Renee Good.
Let me first say that the killing of Renee Nicole Good was an abomination, a disgrace. And blood is clearly on the hands of those individuals within the administration who've been pushing an extreme policy that has nothing to do with immigration enforcement connected to removing violent felons from this country. We support the removal of violent felons from this country who are here illegally. But that's not what this administration has been doing under the so-called leadership of Kristi Noem, who's a stone-cold liar. There's no evidence at all that this was a justified shooting. So let's deal with the tragedy right now. She hasn't even been buried. Her family is grieving. She was a single mom and an American citizen. And we all are outraged by what took place in Minneapolis, and we will respond decisively.
It is. Sure.
Let me go back to health care for just a minute here.
Go ahead.
Let me go back to health care.
And I just want to, I watched the video. You felt like your stomach was being punched. Looking at the video, there seemed no justification for what these agents did. There needs to be a full investigation at the federal level, although I have little faith in the FBI at doing a fair investigation, or DHS, but at the local level as well.
And we're hearing there from Senator Chuck Schumer and Representative Hakeem Jeffries weighing in on this. But something else that they're weighing in on today, that is the House is expected to vote on legislation to extend the Affordable Care Act subsidies that expired at the end of 2025. And that's really a move aimed at preventing higher health insurance premiums for millions of Americans. So Axios reports the House is expected to pass the Democratic-backed measure, with some Republicans joining Democrats despite opposition from Speaker Mike Johnson. And that bill would extend the subsidies for 3 years. Meanwhile, a bipartisan group of senators is telling NPR that they are close to a compromise, though the Senate is not required to take up that House bill. So let's listen into just a little bit on the conversation surrounding this.
Later on today, House Democrats, joined by some of our Republican colleagues in a bipartisan coalition, will advance legislation to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits to prevent millions of everyday Americans from experiencing dramatically increased premiums, copays, and deductibles that would prevent them from being able to go see a doctor when they need one. The cost of living in America is far too high. And from the very beginning of this Congress, House Democrats have said that we will work with our colleagues on the other side of the aisle in order to find bipartisan common ground if our Republican colleagues are willing to focus on making life better for everyday Americans, which means addressing the affordability crisis in this country. The affordability crisis is not a hoax. It is very real. Despite what Donald Trump has had to say. Housing costs are too high. Grocery costs are too high. Utility bills are too high. Child care costs are too high. And health care costs are out of control. House Democrats, joined by Leader Schumer and Senate Democrats, have maintained from the very beginning that we were in this affordability fight until we win this affordability fight. And today, we have an opportunity to take a meaningful step forward to lower the high cost of living for everyday Americans, particularly as it relates to health care. But it's a battle that we will continue to wage on behalf of the American people. It's now my honor to yield to the highly distinguished leader of the Senate Democrats, Chuck Schumer.
Thank you, Leader Jeffries, and thank you and House Democrats for their great work and what's happening on the floor today. I, too, want to just salute Steny Hoyer for an amazing, productive career He will be missed. Democrats are going to make health care and other high costs, the high cost of living, the #1 issue for all of 2026. The average American family, there are millions of them discussing this right now. How are we going to pay the bills? Do I have to put aside my retirement to pay for my higher health care costs? What am I going to do with the higher bills that I'm facing? And every day Americans are saying to their elected officials, do something about it. Unfortunately, our Republican friends have stood in the way of doing something about it, whether it's electric costs, health care costs, housing costs, tariffs, you name it. Yesterday, we Democrats in the Senate had a great forum to talk about housing costs. And then weeks ahead, we'll be talking about the cost of groceries and the cost of electricity, the cost of goods that tariffs have increased, the cost of child care. And we will be relentless on focusing on this issue. Relentless. This is what the American people are demanding of us. And here the Republicans are in their bubble. The contrast of what's going on today in the House and the Senate is glaring. In the House, led by Leader Jeffries, Democrats are trying to extend the credits for 3 years to reduce health care costs. In the Senate, we Democrats are fighting to prevent military adventurism in Venezuela and other countries and endless wars. Donald Trump said last night in his interview with the New York Times it could take years to solve the problem in Venezuela. That is not what Americans want. So Democrats in the House and Senate are focusing on lowering your costs, dealing with affordability. Republicans, led by Donald Trump, are focused on spending our treasure and, God forbid, lives in military adventurism overseas. Again, we are focused on lowering people's costs. We believe that's what the American people want us to do. And I hope today there will be more Republicans joining this leader. And if Republicans in the Senate should listen to the American people, stop this military adventurism by voting for the War Powers Act, which could stop future actions in Venezuela without congressional approval.
Thank you, Leader Schumer.
Leader Young.
Thank you, Mr. Leaders. In terms of the ACA, do you believe that a bipartisan deal is in reach in the Senate? And for the millions of people who are enrolled in the ACA, should they have confidence that these credits will actually be extended?
Well, it's important to take a step forward today, a meaningful step, which is being done in a bipartisan way. Every single House Democrat, joined by a handful of our Republican colleagues, and we're thankful for the bipartisan partnership that is underway. We have to get that done. There's still 2 additional votes today before we can get the Affordable Care Act tax credit extension legislation over the finish line. So we're focused on that right now and have every confidence that Leader Schumer and Senate Democrats are going to do all that they need to do to work to get the legislation over the finish line. The Senate Democrats have been strong on this legislation, and they've been joined by a handful of Senate Republicans. Leader Thune needs to stop playing procedural games, because we know that a majority of senators are already on record supporting a straightforward extension of the Affordable Care Act tax credits.
Yeah, let me say, in answer to your question, American people should ask Leader Thune, are you willing to put this bill that the House now is moving forward on the floor of the Senate, because it will pass. And that is the way to get this done. Right now, Leader Thune and Speaker Johnson have said they don't want to extend the ACA credits for a day, let alone a year. Most of the Republicans in the House and Senate want to put poison pill riders about abortion on it. They are standing in the way. They ought to get out of the way so we can help the American people. And that goes particularly to Leader Thune and Speaker Johnson.
Democrats are threatening to shut down the government right now. Some of your colleagues are threatening to shut down the government right now over the fatal shooting in Minneapolis. Given the fact that we saw the government shut down over these subsidies, I mean, is this a road that Democrats now want to walk down again?
I've been watching a press conference there.
Appropriations Committee,
Representative Hakeem Jeffries and Senator Chuck Schumer just weighing in on the big vote that's happening today in the House, the vote that's all about legislation to extend the Affordable Care Act subsidies. So we'll keep you updated on what comes from that vote. But something pretty exciting that's coming up here in just a few minutes. We are awaiting a press conference. You can see the microphone and the chair that are there and ready and waiting for Arthur Blank. Of course, we're talking about the owner of the Atlanta Falcons. There's been a lot of changes, so he is going to be weighing in publicly for the first time since many of those changes were announced. We have got some lots of news for you on this coming up in just a few minutes, so stick around. Welcome back, everyone. We're glad you're with us on this Thursday. It is a big Thursday, a big one indeed, as we're awaiting Falcons owner Arthur Blank having a press conference speaking publicly about some of the big changes that are coming for the Falcons. So joining us now, we have our Fox 5 Sports Lexi Bowden just to break down what's ahead and, of course, what happened, Lexi.
Yeah.
So it's good to have you on with us.
Thank you.
Thanks
I mean, I feel like the better question is what didn't happen this week in Atlanta sports. I mean, with the Falcons and obviously the Hawks, Trae Young news coming out yesterday. You've been very busy. Yeah.
You've been busy.
It's been fun. I mean, you guys know New Orleans Saints, that was the last game for the Falcons. They did win that game, and they won 4 straight to finish out their season, but it wasn't enough for Arthur Blank. I mean, he's been the owner for a long time now, and he really wants to see his team make the playoffs, and they haven't made it since 2017, so it's been a little bit of a drought. So head coach Raheem Morris, general manager Terry Fontenot have been relieved of their duties, so a couple of vacancies to fill, and then Rich McKay has also been moved from president of football operations. So about 3 roles to fill.
Yes. Okay. So that, this was news that I feel like was welcome for a lot of Falcons fans. Safe to say, right?
I think so. You saw, especially on social media, if you guys are on X or Instagram or TikTok, a lot of fans voice their frustration just at the lack of urgency and kind of the especially the losses that seem like they could have been wins. Like you play the 2-7 Jets and you lose by just 3 points, and then you get blown out 30-0 by the Panthers. Those were the games that you thought you should have won as an organization, but then you beat the Bills. So it's just it's been a very confusing season. But I think Falcons fans just really want to see a complete team, and they had such great draft picks this year with the rookies like James Pierce Jr. and Jalen Walker. So was hoping to have a little bit more success, but it's been a crazy year.
It's been crazy.
Yeah.
It's been crazy. So where are we now? I mean, obviously those are two big positions that need to be filled. What has Mr. Blank said in the past about, what the plans are moving forward?
Yeah, so this news broke at about, we heard about Raheem Morris 8:30 p.m. on Sunday, and then shortly after we heard about Terry as well. So they'll be looking to fill both of those roles. Arthur released a statement that was just expressing disappointment about the season and that they've hired a sportsology firm to look and help with the search, but he has not publicly said yes or no to any of the rumors.
And there's so many rumors.
There's like 7. Well, Mike McDaniels was just fired from the Dolphins about 30 minutes ago. So there's another head coach vacancy. I think that brings it up now to about 8 vacancies. So a lot of movement in the NFL. But some of the names that have been thrown out, I wrote a couple down. For head coach, Broncos defensive coordinator Vance Joseph. We have former Browns head coach Kevin Stefanski, Seahawks OC Clint Kubiak, Dolphins defensive coordinator Anthony Weaver, and then for general manager, Panthers executive vice president Brant Tillis, Bears assistant GM Ian Cunningham, and probably the flashiest name that you guys have seen on social media is that Matt Ryan is rumored to maybe be up for that new president of football operations. And obviously he's a big name to Falcons fans, but these are all just rumors. Our own Myles Garrett does a really good job at tracking all the alerts that are coming out from some of the NFL insiders. So definitely follow Myles Garrett on Twitter to keep up with that. But I don't know. There's a lot of urgency. You can tell that Arthur Blank wants things to be set and to start building that new core staff.
Yeah, I got to tell you, so the statements that came out from him, I feel like the first one was kind of what you'd expect with it being, just the announcement of the changes that were made and why they were made. But then he released another one. It was like, I don't know, maybe the next day or the day after that. And I felt like he was so candid in what he was saying. You know, like he said, I know y'all are disappointed. Like I'm disappointed too. I felt like he was very open and honest with fans. Situation.
And I think you love that as a fan. I feel like they really want a CEO and president to be transparent and candid. And you can tell that Arthur really cares just based on how involved he is in the community and how much he gives back in his philanthropic efforts. He's at every single game, shaking hands. We always have Blaine, our photographer, on him after a win or after a loss, and he's excited or he's disappointed. You can tell he really feels the feelings of this fan base and the team. So he just wants to make something happen.
Sure, of course he does. So it seemed like in just kind of scrolling in the comments that I saw on the Atlanta Falcons, maybe Instagram posts and what people were saying about it, a lot of folks were surprised about Terry Fontenot and the fact that he had been fired as well. So it seems like, there was a big push perhaps for the head coach to be let go. Some folks weren't so thrilled about Terry.
Yes.
Is that kind of what you saw as well?
I would say it's both. Some people really liked Raheem. Other people maybe not so fond. Everyone has their own way and own opinions. But with Terry, just looking at his record as GM, he's been there since 2021. So this was his 5th season. He has a 37-48 record as GM. So a losing record. Raheem also went 8-9 in both seasons. So that's 16-18 overall. So a losing record as well. Raheem was also the interim head coach for 11 games in the 2020 season, so familiarity with the organization, but both of them, just couldn't make things happen for the team.
That's a good way to put it.
And I think in that type of situation, it's you can't really let one go. It's it's a package deal. And I think Arthur has heard the frustrations of the fan base and he wants to do a complete rebuild and just, we'll see what else happens, because also when a new coach comes in, he might bring his own staff. So we might see a lot more changes coming up with the OC and the DC, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, special team, everyone. So I think we'll see an entirely new Falcon staff starting in 2026.
Yeah. So as you can see, if you look at your screen, we're still seeing that empty chair and the microphone. So hopefully in just a few minutes, we'll see Arthur Blank sitting there. Do we have any idea what we're expecting him to say? I mean, is there going to be some big announcement that's part of this? Is this kind of just more explaining what happened? What do you think?
That's a great question.
Intel in this?
That's a great question. I don't think we're going to hear. We might hear some rumors of name. I'd be surprised if he confirmed like who they are seriously considering. I do think he's going to clarify what went into the decision. You know, did he make up his mind 4 games back before that 4-game winning streak to end the season started? Or did this happen, you know, he decided final day of the season? Like, even after the New Orleans Saints win, you saw Arthur and Raheem hugging after he did his press conference. So I think that's also why some people were surprised, because they're like, well, they're hugging each other. Like, they must be on good terms. So,
couldn't read into that. Clearly.
Exactly. And Raheem is such a great person. You know, he's a good coach, and like aside from that, he's like a genuine person, gives you so much attention. He learns every single name of the media members in the press conference room. Like, he is a wonderful person. So I'm sure him and Arthur still have a great relationship. But I think this press conference with Arthur Blank this morning will be more so clarifying the decision, explaining the steps, maybe a timeline, and really just instilling faith in the fan base moving forward.
Okay, so if you're just joining us, we have Fox 5 Sports, Lexi Bowden joining us up here just to talk, you know, a little bit about what's happened this week. It's been a really big week, and that's just talking about the Falcons. I mean, for Atlanta sports, like, this has been a wild week.
It's been a wild week. And can you imagine, so the college football playoff semifinals
There's
tonight.
still that, right?
So it's Miami playing in that game, and it could have been Miami and Georgia in that game, but instead it's not. But can you imagine if we would have had so much going on?
That would have been, it's needed its own segment just to talk about that.
Yeah, and tomorrow, of course, we have the other semifinal game, Oregon and Indiana, that's happening at Mercedes-Benz Stadium right in our backyard. So we have a lot going on. But I wanted to say also about Arthur Blank, our own Kelly Price will be sitting down with him later this afternoon. So we'll also hear more from him directly as well. So
we're gonna get our fill today.
Gonna get a lot of Arthur.
Of Arthur Blank. Here's what we're gonna do. We're still waiting on Arthur Blank to make his appearance there. Again, still the empty chair and the microphone. But in just a few minutes, we should see him sitting there. But in the meantime, we'll be back right after this. Welcome back, everyone. It's 11:30, and we are awaiting a press conference with Arthur Blank. This will be the first time we hear him talking publicly about all of the changes that have been made to the Falcons this week. So we have Fox 5 Sports' Leslie Bowden joining us now with just some insight into some of the changes and into what we could potentially see moving forward. But a big question in all of this is the quarterback situation, Lexi.
I know. It's been, I mean, even last year, you signed Kirk Cousins to this deal, and then you drafted Michael Penix. You have Cousins at the beginning of the 24 season, and then Penix steps in, and it was a little shaky to begin this season.
Yeah.
He gets injured. Kirk comes back in. We learn Penix has ACL tear, has to undergo surgery, and he might not even be ready for the beginning of next season. But
gracious.
we have heard that Kirk Cousins has reworked their deal. So they've modified the final 2 years of the quarterback's contract. It means he's going to be guaranteed in the amount of $67.9 million for the 2027 season. So I don't know what we're just going to see what happens.
I don't know, but you're right. That was a move. I mean, full circle, right?
Yeah.
It's like I feel like so many of us that maybe those of us that don't follow all of this super closely, would kind of counted him out, and then he's back in the mix because he has to be, and then delivers, in so many of the games too. So
yeah, and he had a winning record this year as a starter. So I think it was 5-3 as a starter. So he obviously can still play. I think he's about 36, 37 years old, but he's great, and both of them are wonderful. So I hope it all works out for both Michael Penix Jr. and Kirk Cousins. And the team's just going to look different next year regardless, because also we have some free agents. So Kyle Pitts, who's been with the Falcons for about 4 years, the tight end, his contract will be up, and like the running back, Tyler Algier, who we call the bowling ball because he's always on those plays where you have to muscle it into the end zone that maybe you don't want Bijan Robinson doing that sort of thing. So more free agents as well. And we're going to go all over, what the Falcons is going to look like next year on Fox 5 Sports. But just a little sneak peek that things will definitely change.
Yeah, things will change. So maybe for those that are just joining us and haven't been following this all super closely, Lexi, how about we go back to the beginning of the week? And
where do we start?
Right? And let us know, what changes were made and kind of what the Falcons are looking for right now.
Yeah, so if you're just joining now, Arthur Blank, president and CEO of the Falcons, announced that head coach Raheem Morris and general manager Terry Fontenot have been relieved of their duties. Raheem Morris was head coach for the 2024 and 2025 seasons, had an 8-9 record in both of those seasons, and then Terry Fontenot has been the general manager since 2021, so that was his 5th season. He has a 37-48 record as general manager. So those are the two big vacancies. But then also something which I actually didn't touch on before, but Rich McKay has also been moved out of the president and CEO of the Falcons, the role right under Arthur Blank, and Greg Beadles has been elevated to that role. So that's another move. Rich McKay is still going to be obviously involved in all of Arthur Blank's AMB, SE properties and overseeing everything, but he's not going to be overseeing the Falcons. It's going to be Greg Beadles. So that's another change. But yeah, those are the two big vacancies, are head coach and general manager. And then they're also adding a new president of football operations, and that's rumored to be Matt Ryan, who's obviously the quarterback for the Falcons for a really long time. He does have that CBS deal, so I don't know exactly if he'd be able to do TV and that. Tom Brady kind of has the same thing with the Raiders and his Fox
That'd be
work.
an interesting move.
I know it would be. I think people really want to see Matt Ryan in that role. There was this speech that was kind of going viral on social media where he was brought into the locker room to talk to the guys about what it means to be a Falcon, and you can tell it really resonated with them to have someone that had played for so long and to be able to come back and talk. And it's kind of funny when Phillip Rivers, the older quarterback that came back to play for the Colts this year, Matt Ryan's only 44. So when they said Michael Penix, so now they're like, hey, can we meet Matt Ryan? What are you doing?
I'll throw that too.
Yeah, that would have been really fun.
Yeah, and that would certainly be an interesting move. I thought it was interesting just a few minutes ago. You were talking about some of the prospects for a head coach, and really the list of prospects keeps growing. Right?
Keeps growing.
It did today as well.
I don't even have all of them written down, and I said this before, but our own Fox 5 Sports Miles Garrett is very active on Twitter and has been keeping up with all the people that are rumored to be interviewing or maybe up for this job. And I said this before, that there's many vacancies, so currently 8 head coach vacancies in the NFL. Obviously a lot of big names, like Mike McDaniels was just relieved of his duties with the Dolphins. John Harbaugh was just relieved by the Ravens. So those are 2 big names as we see some people and some movement happening in the press conference room. As we are going to...
We're hopeful. There we go. All right, let's listen in to Arthur Blank.
Appreciate you all being here at the Arthur M. Blank Family Office and those who are joining on the live stream. Before we get into questions, just a couple of housekeeping items. As you know, we have 3 open searches. There's a lot of reporting out there about the candidates and other things. Just want to confirm again that we will announce completed interviews once completed. We will not be announcing scheduled interviews. So once we've completed an interview for all 3 searches, we will announce those, and we will have press conferences with all of the selected leaders that will be joining our organization. So we're going to start now. Just an important note, those interviews with the president of football are starting today. Arthur has a full schedule of meetings and interviews today and tomorrow. So we're going to go for about 20-25 minutes, and we'll wrap up. We're going to go ahead and start with Mark Raimondi and Joe Patrick. We'll go from there.
Wherever you are. Okay. Hey, the team finished on a 4-game winning streak, and there was some speculation that that might be enough to I guess, keep the status quo. Why did that not end up being the case?
You evaluate a team throughout the entire season, and in this case over a couple of years, but let's say this for this season. And, it was my conclusion as the season went on that we could not achieve or not achieving at the level that I thought this roster was capable of performing at. It wasn't for lack of trying, it wasn't for lack of effort, it wasn't for lack of commitment. I have great respect and affection both for Raheem, who I've known for 11 years, and Terry for 5 years. The fact that the team won the last 4 games, I think is a credit to the players, a credit to the coach and coaching staff. But at the end of the day, I didn't think we achieved the level that we're capable of. And I think that it's an expression that I often use, that good is the enemy of great. And I think we're capable of getting to another level. So that was the reason we made the decision.
Joe?
It was not a light switch went on and off. It was kind of a phased process over time. An awful lot of factors that go into it.
Arthur, over here. Joe Patrick, 92.9 The Game. I'll just ask simply, what went into ultimately the decision to let go of Terry Fontenot and Raheem Morris, both individually?
I'd give, it's just a similar answer. I just concluded that I didn't think that those 2 gentlemen, as fine a people as they are, as much as I care about them personally and their families, et cetera, that they were providing the kind of leadership at the level to get us to the next level. And I felt that given the quality of the young players we have on offense and on defense, and some seasoned veterans that are excellent as well, that we needed to move forward both in terms of a change as a head coach and a general manager. Very tough decision. It's a performance-driven league. All sports are, and certainly NFL is no different than that. And so they understand that, and certainly I represent the fans. I've said this many times. I view myself as a custodian of the franchise for the fans. As they felt pain and anguish and frustration during the year, I felt pain and frustration and anger during the year myself. So it was a very thoughtful, balanced decision that took time to reach, but I think it was the right decision for us. And, fundamentally, we wanted to add somebody who's a president of football. And it was kind of clear on the titles, not football operations, it's president of football, because sometimes people could interpret that as being, well, they're responsible for the operations stuff, the backroom stuff, administrative stuff, but this person that we're trying to hire will be responsible for everything that relates to a football and grass. And so both general manager and head coach will report directly to that person, who will report to me.
Ken?
I guess I'll come and ask. John Harbaugh is available. Can you evaluate him as a potential candidate?
Well, John has been one of the most successful coaches in the last 20 years in our league. Has won at every level, and so he would certainly be a candidate we would want to spend some time with. Whether or not he would have an interest in Atlanta, I don't know. I read earlier today he's not taking any interviews this week, and probably will start this coming week, so I'm sure we'll have him on our cycle, assuming he's willing to take an interview with us.
Let's go to hometown, and then we'll go over here, and then back to Charles Odom.
How you doing, Arthur? Good morning. Question, two-parter for you and for the process with the search firms. What guardrails do you think are in place this time to ensure that the final decision is a better one than the last two? And are you going to do anything differently? And will the search firms do anything differently in their approach to getting to the final decisions?
Well, I think I'd give you several parts to respond to that. One, as we all go through life, we all have life experiences, and hopefully you grow through them, you learn from them, and then when you have the same opportunity to make another decision, you make it a little bit differently if it was a mistake previously. So I think we've learned, this last sequence, some things we'd probably do a little bit differently in terms of points of emphasis. Both of these firms, Sportsology, we retained several months ago to do a deep dive on the health, if you will, of the football operations side of our business. They've got great experience in a multiple of sports in that regard, including the NFL. They pointed out some things to us, so they'll help with the search particularly in terms of the general manager search. And ZRG is one of the leading search firms in the world of sports and NFL and football. So we'll be using their talents as well to help screen and filter and ask the right kinds of questions. Our search committee will be structured a little bit differently than it has been in the past. Still be made up of a component of people that represent our leadership and all areas of our businesses, but we're going to put heavy emphasis. We're hiring this president of football first. That's the goals, and over the next couple of days, we have a series of interviews set up. We want to get that person in their seat and have them lead the interviews for the head coach and general manager position going forward. Does that answer your question?
What will you do?
What will I do?
Yeah, that was the last two cycles.
What will I be doing? I'll be doing the same thing that I'll always be doing, which is being available, providing, not only the financial resources, which is the easiest part of my job, but, make sure the culture is maintained, sharing any wisdom, making sure people working cohesively together with the same goals in mind, and doing whatever I can do to support. That's my job, is really to support. I'm a servant leader. If you look at, inverted triangle, which we talk about in our business all the time, the guy that's way at the bottom is me. I'm there as a support system for all of our businesses, and certainly football is no different than that.
Back here, and then to Charles, and then
Arthur, right here. Gary Chapman on SI. What role first off, what went into the decision to draft Michael Penix and also sign Kirk Cousins? Who made that decision? And then what role did you feel like this had in the process that you made to part ways with general manager and head coach?
Well, I think, we've talked about this a good bit in the past, but just a quick summary. I think, when Kirk became available, I think the football folks on, the coaching side and personnel side both felt this was an athlete to perform at the highest level for 14 years in our league, coming off of an injury. Our medical staff felt the injury was at a point where he could play and play effectively. So we stepped up, and because, we want to win, we felt that was the right decision at that time. We drafted Michael because at that time we felt, and still do feel, that Michael was one of the most talented quarterbacks in the draft, and that thinking about the future and not going through a lull, we didn't have a franchise quarterback in place, which is a version of, I don't know what the right word would be, but it's a very difficult position to be in the NFL. It's hard to win in the NFL without a franchise quarterback. It doesn't have to be great. It has to be really good and solid. So we felt that someone like Michael we could draft, bring along for a couple of years. At some point, Kirk might age out. Really hasn't. He played well. Again, the first half of last year, certainly, we were 6-3 and 2-game lead in our division before, his play changed. And Michael stepped up in the first part of this year. So we look forward to having Michael back. He's had good surgery. We spoke to the medical staff. It seems to have gone well. Kirk, we'll see what will happen with him going forward. But there were decisions about winning now over the next 2 to 3 years, and then bringing in a young quarterback and not putting the pressure on a rookie quarterback to have to perform at that level, but giving him an opportunity to learn under an experienced, seasoned veteran guy who has really been a great leader for us, I will say, over the last couple of years, both when he was playing in a support role to Michael last year, and then this year, support role to Michael, and stepping up and playing at a very competitive level for us as well.
I will go Charles, Ladd, and then Bailey.
Since your interviews begin today for president of football, can you talk about what makes the ideal candidate? What are the qualifications, and are you open to considering someone who has no front office or executive experience?
I think the second part of your question has to do with Matt Ryan. My answer to the second part of the question, Matt is somebody we've had a long relationship with. We've continued to talk with. He is one of the candidates we'll be interviewing. My response to that would be Matt Ryan came into the league as a rookie in 2008. Ended up leading a locker room of 53 for 14 years, leading in a huddle, being a great player, leading players, supporting coaches, etc. So his EQ and IQ when it comes to football is extraordinarily high. I've known Matt personally since 2008 and his family, and he's an outstanding individual, great community leader, and the kind of person you'd certainly would want to consider in that position. But we have other candidates that we're interviewing as well over the next couple of days, starting this afternoon, this evening, and going into tomorrow and tomorrow night.
Yeah, Arthur, what did the consultants tell you about, the organization that led you to change the dynamics of the infrastructure? And, or is the hope that this will stop the streak of 8 losing seasons?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think they pointed out there were certain areas, without going into the detail, that from a support standpoint and building a roster and the quality of the analytics and some other areas that we could definitely improve upon. They felt the areas of accountability and communication could be tightened up a little bit from what they have been. They spent a great deal of time. They interviewed close to 30 people, all one-on-one interviews with essentially everybody in the building, not with the coaching staff. With Raheem they did, and with Terry they did, but a lot of other folks they did. And they shared a very detailed report that was written with a lot of quality and drew certain conclusions, which I had a sensibility about myself before, but it was good to hear it confirmed as well. So that was all part of the process. But at the end of the day, the decisions were mine to make, and it's all part of the input that was important to me.
Bailey?
When you look at the head coach, I believe this will be...
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
A little better, thank you.
When looking at the head coach position, I believe this will be the 7th position you'll hire for a head coach. What do you feel like has been lacking there, and what is something you're hoping this round in the hire you can bring an edge to hopefully get this right?
Well, I think we've gotten a lot of things right with a lot of coaches over the years. I mean, I look back at the period of Mike Smith and Dan Quinn, and that those years when we had no history of winning, we won consistently during that 12-year period of time. I think you learn something from every experience you go through, and try to fine-tune the model and try to refine it and make it clearer as to what your expectations are. Make sure there's clear communications, the same vision. You're holding people accountable. Holding people accountable in a performance-based business, which is what the NFL is really important. It's easy to say that. sometimes it's hard to do that because you're in a foxhole every Sunday. There are bullets flying all over the place, some at you, some you're shooting, and so you develop this mentality of being together. So at times, I think that people, in my view, over 25 years in the NFL, there can be too much of a weight on loyalty and not enough of a weight on performance and holding people accountable in a more reasonable period of time. But, you have to be patient, too, because you're dealing with system changes, you're dealing with new players, you're dealing with new orientations with players, moving them around. So change for the sake of change is very penal in the NFL. You want to be very thoughtful about it, not only on a personal level, but because it can impact the team in a negative way. You'll find those organizations that have achieved in the NFL at a relatively high level, one of the things they have consistently is continuity, not just with ownership, but continuity at a head coach and general manager level. We're adding a third component to it now with the president of football, which we think will add another level of quality, another level of emphasis and execution that we haven't had in the past.
We're going to go to Allison, then over to Terrence, then to Tori.
Arthur, I just wanted to clarify. So do you believe that Michael Penix Jr. is the franchise quarterback for the Falcons and is a prerequisite for this new head coach to also keep Jeff Ulbrich as the defensive coordinator with the way they finished?
Two answers, two questions. I do think Michael is our franchise quarterback. The injury he sustained was on his other knee. The surgeon felt 1,000% secure in the medical procedure they went through, and they really felt his knee was going to be even better than it was before. He's on a successful rehab program. He's back in Atlanta. He's committed mentally, physically. He feels good. So, yes, I would certainly see that. As it relates to Jeff Ulbrich, in my view, he did a really fine job for us this year. Certainly look at the record of sacks and just the overall performance of the defense was definitely better than it's been in the past. And you can't dictate to a new head coach, who their coaches are going to be. But I certainly would recommend to a new head coach that they consider Jeff based on his track record, not only here, but his track record before with us in Atlanta. Then he went to New York, and his experience there for certainly a couple of years was at the very top of the league too. So, I would certainly recommend somebody consider him, but it's not something we can require or mandate. The right head coach is going to want to put together their own staff, and they'll be working closely. In this case, it's not the president of football won't do the head coach's job, but it'll have a working partner who has great football knowledge in that position that they can help build the staff with.
Terrence, Tori, then Josh Kendall.
Arthur, in the more than 20 years you and I have been talking, you've always been highly customer focused. So given all the no-shows the last 2 or 3 years, how much did that factor into your decisions, as far as the organization is concerned? And the second question would be, Raheem has mentioned a couple of times that when it came to the quarterback situations, that it was an organizational decision. So how much were you and Rich involved in that as opposed to just Terry himself?
The answer to the first part of the question, when you have no-shows, that's not a problem. It's an indication of a problem. So it's like, there's a fire caused someplace, or what caused the fire. So that's the reason for the changes, is the cause of the fire, not the fire itself. But we definitely, we're here for our fans. I tell our players, whenever it's appropriate time, I just remind them, without fans, either watching them in person or watching them on TV, we have 22 guys playing sandlot football. And so they understand that. And so, and the fans give us more than the resources. They give us their time, their energy, their passion, their commitment, their family time. They give us a lot of things. So we owe it to them to step up and make the right decisions in their behalf. And I always view the fans as sitting on my shoulders, all of them, and looking at the decisions that I'm involved in and any thoughts that I'm sharing, what are the views of the fans? Doesn't mean they drive the franchise, but it means they're obviously one of the major reasons we're here. The second part of your question was about, okay. Yeah, when you're making decisions, and I would say this is true for every owner in the National Football League, I know them all for a long period of time. When you're making significant decisions like the Kirk Cousins contract or probably who you're drafting in the first round, those kind of things, it becomes an organizational decision. I've been part of certain situations where that was not the case, and the result of that is never healthy. It's never healthy for the organization. So you want the organization to see the same vision, to buy into it, to support it, to all be in lockstep on those kinds of things. It doesn't mean you agree on everything. It means you have healthy debate before you make the decisions, but once you make them, you move forward together in support of those decisions.
So it wasn't totally cherry.
No, I mean, we would never have a situation in my 25 years, so I don't think it'd be healthy any place in the NFL or any organization for one person to be making a decision that's going to affect everybody in a variety of ways at a fairly deep level without input and guidance and shared wisdom from other people. At the end of the day, somebody has to make that final call, and I understand that, but it's not normally going to be one person.
Tori, Josh, and then Gabe.
Kind of to that end, when it comes to the president of football role, I know we've kind of talked around it a little bit, but what led to the decision to add that to the organizational structure, and what are attributes within an individual that could lead to success within that role?
I think one of the reasons we felt it was necessary is that I'm not involved on a day-to-day basis in our football business. I'm involved, but not on a day-to-day basis, and shouldn't be. Because I have authority doesn't mean I have the knowledge. So we can never confuse the two. And if you get a leader who's in that position, they get confused. They can really make some bad decisions. So I've never been confused about that. So we wanted somebody else to have input and guidance and hold the accountability and work closely with the head coach and general manager to build their capacities as a coaching staff and building a roster, making sure it's consistently held within the vision that we have for the team, how we want to play ball on the offensive side of the team, on the special team side, on the defensive side of the ball. So that's the biggest role that person will play. And if we bring in the right person, it'll make a big difference in my view. Obviously, you still got to hire the great head coach, the great general manager.
This is an experienced officer who followed his training, and we will continue to let the investigation unfold into the individual and continue to follow the procedures and policies that happen in these use of force cases. But let's remember the events that surrounded what happened yesterday on that tragic situation.
Haven't worked out the way you'd hoped through the first 2 years. Was that part of the factor in firing Raheem and Terry?
No. I mean, this is and that's a clear no. This is a performance-based business. I mean, I'm disappointed the way we ended this last year. I mean, the year before this current year. But we ended up not performing well at the end of the year. We were in a strong position. This year. There's a lot of peaks and valleys, too many peaks and valleys, too many levels that were not consistent throughout our play. So it was a combination of things over a period of time, but it had nothing to do with the decisions that we collaboratively made about Kirk Cousins or about Michael Penix.
And to make sure I'm clear, the new president of football will be the final say on draft picks, on roster construction.
Well, I gave you a quick answer, yes. You don't want, you're not going to find a head coach at the level we want to seek or a general manager at the level we want to seek that are going to cede their job to a president of football. And you're not going to find a president of football who is really a balanced leader and a thoughtful leader who wants to do the job of other people working for them. That never works in any organization, in any industry. So the general manager will do his job, the head coach will do their job. They both will be accountable to the president of football, so there'll be dialogue, exchanges, ideas, et cetera, but at the end of the day, you want the head coach and general manager to have the final say in their areas of responsibility with the input and guidance from the president of football.
And finally, forgive me, given your track record with Rich McKay, was it a difficult decision for you to sort of fully remove him from the Falcons' decision-making process?
Well, I mean, Rich has a long storied history in the NFL. It goes back well over 30 years, but with us, over 20 years, and we won a lot of games when he was our general manager. He was part of that whole transition. He's moved on to a whole bunch of other really important things for us. He's CEO of AMBSC. So what does that mean? It means that he's involved in the World Cup. He's involved in soccer, both Atlanta United and the new NWSL team. He'll be involved in a lot of community things. He chairs the Metro Chamber this coming year. I've done that once in my life in 2001, and that by itself is almost a full-time job. It's breakfast, lunch, dinners virtually every day, community meetings, leadership, things of that nature. So he's got a very full plate, and he will continue to serve as co-chair of the competition committee for the National Football League. So, and complete support of our commissioner, Roger Goodell, in that regard.
Go to Gabe, and then we'll wrap up with Carl and Chris.
There are now 8 head coach openings.
Say again?
There are now 8 head coach openings, and some of these candidates are going to have options. Mm-hmm. What do you feel separates this team in this situation from the other vacancies?
I think it's a really good question. I think what separates us, and somebody will have to make a decision on their own judgment about the quality of the ownership, et cetera. But that is always a factor. I would say that generically, not because I'm sitting here, but to people who are in a head coach, GM position or position of football, president of football, versions of that. And there are a number of those around the NFL that exist in 3 or 4 or 5 other teams now. They want to know they have stability at ownership. They want to make sure ownership is committed financially, emotionally, culturally, and provide the support that's necessary for them to be successful. I'm sorry, the second part of the question. I apologize.
Just how do you feel with your situation?
Okay, yeah. So, and I look at our roster, and I look at the young players we have on both offense and defense. We had a really great draft class, in my opinion, this last year. We've had some other players carried over from a couple of years before that. So I like both sides of our roster. I like some of the seasoned vets we have as well. I love our stadium, voted #1 in the United States again for fan experience, and that's not unimportant. It's important to the players to have fans show up. Goes back to Terrence's question earlier. Players hear the fans, they see the fans, they want the seats filled. There's a lot of things that determine that. One is a competitive product on the field, but also the experience they have within the building itself. So I think all of those things. Atlanta is a great city, great market, and I think all those things are factors in somebody making a professional as well as a personal decision. Because you're talking to coaches and general managers, in many cases, if not all cases, they have families, and so they're making decisions not only for themselves but for their wives or their wives' partners to help them make that decision, along with their kids and whatever. There's a lot of factors, but Atlanta's a great market too. Sorry.
Arthur, what do you say to the fans who are very frustrated? Obviously, you heard, I'm sure you've heard from them. You just talked about your frustration. What do you say to the Falcon fans who are struggling with the idea that we can't seem to get this part of it right as far as the coach, general manager, et cetera? What's your message to them?
Well, I think you go back and look at our history since when we acquired the franchise in 2001. We've had a great 14-year run under two head coaches. We've won a bunch of games. The last 8 seasons clearly have been very disappointing. The losing seasons and not getting the playoffs both. You have a team this year that has a losing season and is in the playoffs. So we don't want to be in either one of those categories. We don't want to lose and get in the playoffs. We want to win and be in the playoffs. So we will will commit our intellectual resources, our financial resources, any bit of intellect or wisdom we can bring from the outside, inside, to make sure we understand more clearly what is it we could do better, what is it we can set in terms of setting the expectations for a new head coach, general manager, what is a president of football, which is a position we've never had in the history of the Falcons, filled now, what that person is bringing to the table in terms of holding people accountable, making sure we maintain a vision. It's very difficult in this business or any sports business when you have too many changes become excessive. The hardest people it's on is the players. New systems, new language, new positions sometimes. So consistency at the top is very, very important, but the quality of the consistency is really important. So in my judgment, changes we've had to make in the past have always been with a 3-year tenure. In my opinion, in this case, after 2 years, I knew that we had to make the changes. So this wasn't a time lapse kind of situation. It was a performance lapse situation that, in my judgment, I felt after 2 years, Raheem and his team, and Terry after 5 years, I felt I've seen enough to know that we could do better than this, in my view.
All right, we'll wrap it up with Chris Dimino.
Arthur, good morning. If it was a wellness check, that's Sportology.
I'm sorry, what?
If we're going to call it a wellness check, perhaps that's what Sportology did. It was a wellness check on the organization. What were one or two, maybe the most surprising things that you read about the organization, and how big a point of emphasis did they say there might be a murkiness when it comes to the hierarchy of power? President of football, let's do that. And then perhaps even with Rich, emphasizing once again that Atlanta Falcon football decisions are going to be made by people other than Rich going forward.
Yeah, well, I mean, let me just clear that up again for the third time. I mean, Rich was not the focus of the report, and it's very clear. If I showed you his calendar and his schedule, I mean, he doesn't have time for anything else. So we've asked him to move away from his time with football, which was very limited over the last number of years. It was there, but very limited, to focus on all these other things that we're involved in. I think the big things coming out of the report, I said this earlier, was that, we have to have a consistent vision that everybody in the organization understands in terms of how we want to play the game consistently. You can go around the NFL, and there are certain teams, I don't want to name which ones, but you all probably can in your own minds, that if you would project 5 years from today, how do you think that team will be playing, what the points of emphasis will be in that team, you probably could pretty well predict, the kind of ball they'll be playing. It might be changed a little bit, refined a little bit, but essentially, we need to have a clearer vision on offense, defense, and teams, how we're going to play, and then have a coaching staff that understands that clearly, have a GM that understands clearly how do you build players, bring them into the roster that match that system and that philosophy, and hold people accountable for their results and their decision making and their performance. It is a performance-based business. It's a high risk, high reward kind of nature. That is the industry that we're in, and that's what we've chosen to be in, and we love the opportunity to do that. We have to make sure we represent all those values correctly and represent our fans the way they would expect us to. Not impulsively, but thoughtfully. But once decisions are made, you don't measure 3 years, 2 years, 1 year. When you see the facts come to you and you draw a conclusion and make a conclusion based on solid information, you make that decision as soon as you can. Hence, after 2 years, we've decided to move on from Raheem and staff and Terry and his group.
Can I just go back? Was there anything surprising in their report of findings that?
I would say that one of the things that I probably a little bit surprising was the lack of clarity on, about the vision for the team. And that's, that's in any business, in any industry, we don't have clarity around vision about what you're trying to establish and trying to build. You could end up with a lot of disparate parts, everybody moving in different directions. And that means you're not only unsuccessful or partially unsuccessful, but you can be very inefficient. as laser focused as you can be in terms of exactly what you want to do, you're going to make better selections of players, coaches, and coaching staff, hold that kind of consistency in place, and then you modify over time depending on what's happening in the game. The game is changing. The NFL has definitely moved to a more focus on offense and defense over the years. But you got to, particularly when it comes to the playoffs, teams that have really great defenses do well.
All right. Thank you all for being here. We've got to get Arthur off to interviews and meetings. Thank you.
Thank you all. I appreciate it. Again, final word to the fans. Thank you for your patience, your support, your own wisdom collectively and individually. And we promise you that we're 100% committed to bringing us back to the level that you would expect us to be at. So we appreciate that.
Thank you all.
And that's the word from Arthur Blank. A lot said. You can.
Yeah, we expect that we're going to see these temperatures anywhere from 67 to 71 degrees. So that's kind of a regional look at temperatures. We'll look more at the weekend forecast coming up, what we can expect out of this cold front that's headed our way. Alex?
Okay, thank you, Doug. We'll check back soon. Well, big moves for the Atlanta Hawks as they trade all-star Trae Young to the Washington Wizards. The Hawks will get 2 players in return. The news broke during last night's game, and there's some mixed reaction over it. Fox 5's Mark Teichner is at State Farm Arena with reactions from players.
In some ways, this trade not really